All right, welcome back to the Recruit Pursuit podcast. Just want to say first, I got some special guests lined up in the next couple of weeks from within athletes, coaches, um, former players, things like that coming up in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe a little basketball show as well with the special coach or co-host that's going to join me and things like that. But first, just want to welcome Coach James Jansen from Treasure Valley Community College. How you doing, Coach?
Doing good, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for coming on. It took us a little bit to get the setup because I was in the move and didn't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's a busy time of year for basketball, that's for sure.
It is, especially for you. I know your schedule is crazy packed.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to start with just going back to, your previous experiences and, what got you started coaching basketball, in the very first place in the beginning.
Yeah. I've been around basketball my whole life. It's just been part of not who I am, but what I do, and so growing up and playing and then going to college and doing that thing. And then when I was about to hang it up, I was coaching some AAU and a good friend of mine who was a high school coach down in the Sacramento area, Troy Selvey, kind of caught me coaching, and he had a spot on his staff that he needed a guy for, and so he talked me into coming back and coaching, and I knew it was something I always wanted to do, but it's a hard market. It's a hard world to dive into because it's not just something you do. It's a lifestyle. Coaching is a lifestyle, and so he got me back in 2 feet, and so I was fortunate enough to work with him and Justin Williams down there in the Sacramento area, and it was fun. I had a blast, and then as that was kind of winding down, and I was looking to the next chapter of things. One of my former coaches reached out to me. And he was taking the job at Simpson University up in Reading, and it was one of those. He's a lifelong friend of mine as a coach, and so it was fun to get the opportunity to go back and work with him. And I'm from Reading, so moving my family back there, and that was a really really pivotal moment, I think, for my coaching career because as trying to break into the coaching world is hard, and it's about relationships. And I had one with Coach Franklin and Todd. I still call him Coach, but everyone, I think I just changed his name in my phone to Todd Franklin instead of Coach Franklin as his contact. But I had to leave. The one income that my family had, and me and my wife figured it out. And I said, this is something I think I want to do. And my wife is amazing, and so she's definitely supported along the way, and we dove 2 feet in and figured it out. And that first 2 years was, it was a lot of just figuring things out, right, to make it work. And so, that's kind of what got me there. And then Simpson to CVI and CVI to here. But, coaching is just something I love doing. I love the competitiveness of it. I love the relationship. I love the mentor aspect of it, and the kids and young men that we get to work with. And I say kids and young men because I think at our level of especially now junior college to that level, but those first 2 years of a young man's life from their freshman and sophomore year to their junior and senior year is probably some of the most influential times in decision making that they'll make. And I love being a part of young men in that time period of their life because it's so crucial. I know that was for me. And so it's been awesome. I'm really glad I get to do this full time.
Yeah, I love that. And the connections are just such a powerful thing. It's something that really, leads a long way. Like you just mentioned how you just changed coach's number or coach's name, to his real
Yeah.
name instead of coach, you
Yeah.
know. I did also just want to say real fast, you were talking about how the connections, and I always tell the athletes too that, connections are extremely important and they're going to bring you a long ways. If you didn't have that connection with the coach, then you wouldn't have started coaching at Simpson in the first place. So what's
Mhm.
one sort of advice you could give the athletes out there, or maybe future potential, coaches who are trying to coach, that could help them get that sort of connections with other people?
Yeah. I think it's just not being afraid to kind of put yourself out there. It was easy for me to have that relationship with Todd because he coached me and I've known him forever. And so we've had a bond for a long time. But, when I was visiting some friends up in Idaho, 4 or 5 years ago, with no intentions of moving, we were set. Things were in lockstep at Simpson, and we were living near family in our hometown. Um, I just came to visit friends up here in Idaho, and I reached out to a couple coaches, Coach Blaine being one of them, and just said, "Hey, I'm in town. I would just love to connect with you and chat about, C of I." And he's just another basketball coach, right? So I try and do that still, just to continue to connect with guys. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, he had an opening on his staff, and my wife was thinking about moving, and so it panned out. But just putting yourself out there and doing as many things as you can, working camps, especially for young coaches, working camps and not being afraid of the grind. Everyone wants the fun part of coaching, which is the sidelines and the gear and the some of us, some get plane trips and everyone sees what they see on TV, but the grind of hotels and meals and rooming lists and making sure you don't lose receipts. And so, camps are a huge way for young coaches to show, coaches, man, this kid's got a hunger or whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, there's so many people that want these jobs. There's so many people that want these jobs. That's why coaches are underpaid, right? It's because they can generally find someone to come in and do it, whether it's good or not, right? And they'll find someone to sit in that chair and wear that polo and do it. But if you want to be good at it, you've got to be able to have relationships with other coaches and let them know, that you're in the trenches just like they are, and this is what you want to do. One of my best stories was I was visiting a coach in Texas, and we were with some other coaches, and I was just getting to know this coach, and he was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and he's like, "Man, what is?" And I'm sitting right there, and he's like, "What is Coach James plan B?" And I'm like looking at him like, "Is he talking to me or is he talking to him?" Like, I'm sitting right here, and he goes, and my buddy goes, "Him?" And what's his plan B? And he's like, "Yeah, what's his plan B when this doesn't work out?" And he's like, "He doesn't have a plan B." And he's like, "All right, then." It was like that assurance of like, "Look, you got to buy in. This is what you got to do." You know what I mean? There is no plan B. You figure it out, right? You figure it out if you want it bad enough. And so, just being able to show that sort of enthusiasm towards this business is fun. And it's not just year 1 and 2. It's year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like those are when you start to, see the guys fall off, because it's hard. It's hard to stay in this business, man. It is so hard to stay in this business. So relationships are what keep you going.
100%. Yeah, I've learned that in my early years so far into this, and I'm glad to have some people, inform me how important those are, and be able to try to make those connections.
Yeah.
One thing I want to bring up real fast before we talk about Simpson and C of I is just the importance of having a supportive partner. I have a extremely supportive partner as well who, was able to help me get the job or help at Wacom last year, and even be able to do that opportunity, So I just wanted to also say, that's also something that coaches really, rely on as well as their partner. And, it's the sacrifices made are a lot greater than just for the individual coach, for the families as well, like you're mentioning.
Oh, for sure. I think it might be the most important part to a coach's longevity. I'm over the moon in regards to like my situation with my wife, and we've been together. We're high school sweethearts, and so we've been together for a long time, and we've always helped each other chase each other's goals and dreams, and it's just part of what we do. But young coaches, and their relationships, it's a lifestyle. It's not just a job. It's not 9 to 5. College athletics is not a 9 to 5 job. And if 9 to 5 is what you're looking for, Safeway, Best Buy, I mean, you better find something like that, because I am up in wee hours of the night, and watching film and on the phone and getting texts, and my phone's gone off on the nightstand before where I'm answering. She's like, "Who is that?" But she is so supportive, and she's she travels to our away games, and
It's
I think
awesome.
sometimes with parents, when I recruit their kids, like I talk about the family atmosphere of our program, and it's partially because of her, because she's the one, half the time it's like, let's have the guys over for dinner, or she's on the road with us and we're eating together as a group, and they see my family there, right? And so they see when I talk about family, it's not just me talking about it. It's my family's in it with me. My boys sit on the bench half the time if they're at the games, and they bring their friends, and so I'm super super blessed and fortunate to have her alongside me.
I love that. And it builds such a good connection between your players as well, because,
Yeah.
just the loving atmosphere and everything is awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Simpson University real fast. How was your time there? I think you spent about 3 years there, right?
Yeah.
What do you think
Yeah,
you
it
learned
was good.
most?
Man, I would say most probably it's super important if you're going to have success at the college level. You've got to have an administration that understands it, and so we dealt with a lot of turnover and a lot of change and a lot of change every
Yeah.
single year. There was change and change and change, and coach and I just had to figure out, all right, this is the sandbox. This give us our rules, and we'll play in the sandbox, and we're going to build a castle. That's what we always said. Like, it doesn't matter what you guys change. We're going to build a castle about whatever sandbox you give us. And so I learned how to be mobile and adjust to ever changing, things. And it's given me an appreciation for my C of I and my current administration at TVCC, because that is so important to have success at this level. You've got to have an administration that understands it, and that supports it, not just has kids for enrollment numbers. I mean, that is something that is so prevalent nowadays, carrying multiple teams and wanting 20 kids on a roster. That's not looking out for kids. That's not looking out for kids at all. That's just making sure we've got numbers and butts and seats and FTE and things like that. And so administration is huge. And I think the other piece is Coach Franklin let me do a ton. I mean, he literally said whatever he knew, this is what I wanted to do, and so he turned over a ton to me in terms of if I wanted to get something done, I just got it done, right? And so whether it was my last couple of years scheduling, an assistant coach doesn't generally schedule a ton, whether it be travel and road and trips and itineraries and things like that. The Dobo side of things. I did all that from Jump Street, right? Because I'm a bit of a grinder, but talking about our defensive schemes and our offensive schemes, there wasn't a piece to the program that I didn't get to touch. Recruiting wise, if there was a kid that I felt strongly about, I brought it to him, and we came together and figured out, how does this kid fit our system and fit our role and fit our other pieces that we have, and he was on board. And so I really got to touch every area of a basketball program, as an assistant coach, and that's not always the case, right? Sometimes at smaller schools you get to, which is the situation I was in. But if you're at a bigger school of any sort, you're pretty confined to your role and what you do. I have a lot of friends at the Division I level, and they're so limited in time and travel and being on the court. Now those rules have eased up a little bit, but I got to literally put my hands on everything and see what I liked and didn't like, right? And so just being exposed to everything, and coach giving me the reins to do that was huge, I think, in my early part of my coaching career at the college level, for sure.
You put a lot of trust in you and being able to do all that stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, I think those years, I think we had known each other for 15 years. And so, I mean, his oldest girl, McKenna, she's a junior, senior in high school now. And I remember when she came to our games when I was playing for him, as an infant, like
Mhm.
just was born, and a week later she's at the games. And so we've known each other for so long, you know what I mean? It's a bond that we have, and it's trust. And at the same time, he put a lot of trust in me to do that, and I put a lot of trust in him to step away from what I was doing, to come jump into this coaching thing. So I'm forever grateful for him.
Well, what was the transition of C of I like? I know you touched on it a little bit before how you were on a visit back home in Idaho and you connected, but um, what was that transition like in getting that new position? And I know you mentioned how your family was already wanting to move, but what really made you commit to that?
Yeah, my wife. No, we had two boys at the time, and my oldest boy can adapt to pretty much any environment. He's similar to me, probably too much like me. My wife loves it. My youngest boy is a little bit more quiet, and when he was getting ready to start kindergarten, we had talked about moving. We had been there, our entire lives pretty much, in Northern California, and so we talked about moving and things like that. And we looked at some schools, and I talked to some schools in Texas and in Arizona and Idaho for that matter, and different things. And we were just trying to figure out what we wanted to do as a young family, right? I mean, we had two kids by the age of 23, and both, I was working, and she was a mom at home. She worked from home a little bit, but we just kind of were trying to figure out what we wanted out of life and things like that. And so when we kind of put our heads together and prayed about things, and it was like, let's make a move. And I think everyone thought we were crazy because we didn't know anybody. I knew nobody in Idaho. I knew absolutely nobody until we had one set of friends that live out here and so forth. And that was really the only set of friends that we knew. But we just loved the area. My wife loved the area. And so it just felt like the right situation to raise our kids, right? And that as young parents, you're trying to figure out best situations for those. And I said, well, man, I met Coach Blaine a year and a half ago. Like, let me just give him a call or shoot him a text and see if he has any openings or anything like that. And this is coming off that COVID cancellation year, so they were unbelievable. I didn't really expect to have anything open up necessarily. I talked to him and a couple other coaches, and it just turned out that he had, three coaches leaving staff to go take other jobs and move on and things like that. And he had some openings, and from get go, it was his excitement and enthusiasm about things. And I'm like, I'm a spark as well. And so I fed off that energy and just felt it and connected with it right away. And I think we had 3 or 4 phone conversations that lasted about maybe an hour and a half a piece. And, he called some references and things like that. And it just worked out for me to transition up here. And we found a house. And when we moved, and our family was like, where are you guys going? You don't have anybody out there. Like, who's going to be your support system? And that's just me and my wife. We're our support system, right? That's what we're there for. And so it was awesome. I loved my time there, and really fortunate to be living here in Idaho.
What's your biggest takeaway of your time doing coaching at C of I?
Man, the that could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself, right? Because I learned so much in my 2 years there. Coach Blaine is so awesome to work with, and he's not everyone's like cup of tea, right? He's fiery on the sidelines, he's fiery in practice, he's fiery, all the time. But I love it because he cares so much about his craft. And so for me, it was probably preparation. Like he's the ultimate preparation guy in terms of practices and scouts and films and travels and trips, and he's got it dialed in there to where I was able to step in, and we changed a few things just like every coach does, right, to make it fit what they're doing and their responsibilities. But just his preparation for film and games and recruiting and thinking ahead, right? And the next recruiting class, his number one emphasis was always on the guys we had on that roster. But it was always in the back of his mind of, okay, what do we have to do to make sure we continue the sustained success? And as you can tell, year after year, they get better and better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And culmination of a national championship last year. And it's I'll use one of his terms. It's not a fluke, his preparation is second to none. And one of the things that I really, really took away, and I try and tell my guys, like, confidence comes from our preparation. And so if we're prepared, like, that's what gives us confidence, and going into games, like we did this past week, and we played 3 games in 3 days, which is, it's just crazy on the body. Right.
It's a lot, yeah.
But we were so prepared for it. I felt like our guys, every game, I felt really good about. And every game we go into, because of the staff that we have at TVCC, I feel like our guys are prepared. Their bodies are taken care of. They've eaten well. They're hydrated. They're strong in the weight room due to our strength program. Our game plan is set. They don't have any questions about how we're going to attack things or how we're going to defend things. That stuff is all taken care of, and we're prepared. And I think that's a huge part of a team's success. And so, just the preparation aspect, and that goes back to Coach Blaine's just work ethic. Like, it's second to none. He asks a lot of his coaches and his players, but he also gives a lot. He's got a huge heart, and he takes care of his players, whether they're current players or past players. There's nothing, or coaches for that matter too. There's nothing that he won't do to help his guys out, and that was awesome to be a part of and still be a part of, in all honesty.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and they do get better each and every year. It's fun to watch. And last year they just played such incredible basketball. If you actually watch their games, it's really fun to watch. I can imagine coaching alongside him, absorbing all the information. What led you to taking the transitioning just a little bit? What led you to taking this head coaching job at TVCC? I know it's not too far from Idaho, but I don't know how far it is from C of I.
It's about 30 minutes from C of I, just down I-84. So I still live in Nampa. I live. It takes me about 40 minutes to get to work each day. So bought a hybrid. I had to get rid of my Duramax, and I bought a hybrid. On the freeway and driving around it helps me. But it came open 2 years in a row, and the first year I thought about it, but I was like, man, I still have so much to learn, and I still have so much to learn. And so I kind of thought about it, and I kind of poked around and called some people about it and tried to ask some questions. And I try to always follow my gut, my instincts, right, and my intuition. And I was like, it's not right. Like, I've still got so much to learn, and I'm so glad I didn't really go after it that first year, because I learned so much in my second year at C of I that has led me to being where I am now. And then, I was content. People always ask me, like, what's your next move? What's your next move? I'm like, I got 3 young kids now. The Coach Blaine understands, time and family and summers and vacations and making sure you're at your kids' games. Like, he gets all that. I was like, I'm good. I really, really am. And then it came open again. And my first call was to Coach Blaine. Like, I was like, man, what do you think? Like, what do you think about this? And I wouldn't say I'm older. I'm still on the younger side of 30s, but he knew, like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to coach. And a lot of the troubles that TVCC has with coaching in their situations, like, I was able to check that box. We're not full time over there, but my wife and I own our own business, and so to be stipend over there until something becomes full time in the future, hopefully. I checked that box. The commute wasn't a big deal for me. I didn't need to move my family, right? And so my wife was happy with that, and it gave me an opportunity to run my own program. Being an assistant for 5, 6, 7 years, I just felt like the time was there. I was content with being an assistant coach. I really was. I love being an assistant coach, but I also love being a head coach. And so we just talked about the pros and the cons. And when we chatted about it, it was kind of like, him, talking me through it. Right. Cause you're always like, man, am I ready for this? I don't know yet. And so I applied, and things just seem to play out. They always take longer than you want to. Right. But there's always a process to things. And if I'm going to tell my kids to relax and trust processes, us as coaches have to relax and trust processes as well. And so it all worked out, and it's been an awesome transition. I still have, a lot of friends that I can call and when I have questions, because, this is only my second year being a head coach. I learned a ton last year about being a head coach and what it takes. And I'm still learning this year, because I have a totally different team and a totally different dynamic and 2 more assistants. I'm not used to that. And so I've got to make phone calls, be like, man, how do you handle this? Or what do you do with this? I'm the first one to tell my guys, like, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes as players. And I tell them, like, I'm going to make mistakes, So I just try and rely on people that have done it before and don't necessarily reinvent the wheel. But it's been an awesome transition, especially, for my family and my kids to still be close and then be able to lead a program here in the Valley. And, we've got junior college, we've got NAI, we've got Division II, and we've got Division I right here in the Valley. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty freaking awesome. It's pretty awesome. So it's definitely a special place, and basketball, I feel like, is growing here in the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it is growing over there as well. I do you want to transition a little bit to talk about Coach Rapp? I know he's been with you since the beginning of last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From last year, he was with me from day one.
Yeah. How do you think Coach Rapp fills, that gap that you would need, for being a first year coach, running your first program and everything like that?
Yeah. Perfectly, is there a word? Perfectly. He fills those gaps so well. There was so much that I had to learn, and I've been good at some of these little things, right? The Dobo tasks for a long time, because as an assistant coach, it's what you do, right? And game planning and prep, probably a little bit more than Dobo, but game planning and prep and scouting and recruiting and filming, I've done those for a long time. But when you move that next seat over, there's a lot of other things you have to think about, and you've got to let some of those go, and you've got to have someone that is confident and comfortable to grind their way through stuff and figure stuff out and take care of the little stuff and just take it off of my plate. And he does that and then some. He's fantastic with all the stuff that isn't flashy, isn't what everyone sees on TV, right? He gets it all done and makes our lives as a team so much better and as a program so much better. And on top of that, he takes care of our guys like to no end, with whatever they need, making sure they're taken care of. And these guys are a long way from home, some of them, and they, don't have family and things here. And so just being that resource for them, as an assistant, to make sure that they're well taken care of, and our parents know that their kids are well taken care of. He fills those gaps just as good as anyone could. So super, super lucky to have him. And we burned the candle at both ends last year. It was just the two of us, and we were both young, in our roles, respectively, and we figured it out together. And so I'm super lucky to have him with me. And we've added a couple more guys this year, and Blaine Wright, who was a longtime high school coach in the Valley, and Trey Gary, who originally was from Idaho, but he played, for 4 years, 5 years technically with COVID, over at PLU in the Seattle area. And when he got done, he wanted to coach. And so adding those two guys to our staff has been awesome, because it takes some of the weight off Coach Rapp and I's plate, right? That we were wearing last year. I think I got some more gray hair from last year, or still. But they've just been a totally another dynamic that has been able to help us take this thing to another level in regards to our weight room and our preparation and fundraising and different things like that.
Definitely. Yeah. What do you think you and Coach Rapp's biggest learning experience from last year was?
Oh man. I don't know if there's a biggest one.
It was probably all just the whole big learning experience.
It was everything. It was everything from, I had never been to Pasco, Washington. I mean, I had never been to Walla Walla, Washington. I had never been to Moses Lake. I had never been to some of these towns that we go and play in. And so, even finding hotels and what we're doing, where do you stay and where do we eat, right? To what do we need to win? What do we need to win in the NWAC? I felt like we had some guys that could play last year, which we did. But due to a ton of injuries, I had 4 or 5 season-ending injuries last year. Wow. We didn't get all those guys on the floor. And so it was, what do we need to win? Right. That was probably the biggest thing, is what type of talent do we have to win? Not just in the East region, because there were multiple Division I players that came out of the East region and a ton of Division II players that came out of the East region. But what does it take to win in the NWAC? I mean, there's some really, really good players in the NWAC, and there's some really good coaches that run really good programs in the NWAC. And if you want to compete with those programs and those coaches and those players, you better have some horses yourself, And so learning what it takes, the athlete or the shooter or the point guard or the big or whatever it is, your bench, what do you need to win at this level? And so I think that's what we took away a ton, and trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's just a lot on your shoulders as well, right? And
Yeah.
I bet the stress all year was a lot. And I assume those drives for you guys are really long. You guys are way over there.
Those, yeah, everyone talked about it, and I love this. When I got the job, everyone talked about, oh, you're never going to get anyone to come play over there. It's so far, it's going to be tough to have road games. You got to travel all the time. Well, I told you, administration support is big, when you're trying to build a program, and for us, we have an awesome administration who gets it. We are a small college, but they also understand the benefits that sports and the multiplying factor that sports can bring to a school. And so our athletes, we don't have to ride in 15 passenger vans. We ride in a charter bus. And so
Oh, that's awesome.
we take a charter bus everywhere we go. And I talk to kids about this in the recruiting aspect, because at junior college, shoot, at 4-year levels, you don't get that a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so how you travel is huge. You don't get that a ton, and so we charter everywhere. In the preseason, if we're going somewhere, with our girls team, we'll travel together. Obviously, in league, we travel together on a big charter bus, and so that is nice. But as a coach, you don't have to drive, right? And
Yeah.
so that is a huge thing. And as a player, you get to just sit back and relax, right? You get to sit back and relax and maybe work on some homework or prepare for a game, read the scout again, watch some film, and things like that. And now with gas prices, like, charters have gotten crazily expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just flew to Portland and back out of Boise. We're 45 minutes, 50 minutes from Boise. So we flew. It was cheaper to fly. And that you don't get. Right? You don't get. But our administration understands it's not the appearance of, oh, they're flying. No, it's cheaper to fly. Like, let's do
Yeah.
what is more cost effective. But we also have to take into account, like, the athletes and the travel. Do we want to just put our athletes and our coaches in 15 passenger vans and put them at risk of driving long hours? No, they want to make sure we're taken care of. And so we're definitely super lucky in that regard, to have an administration who supports us to travel like we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember last year at Wacom, I was driving the vans, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot, and it is a lot on the athletes, because they're all jammed in there. I think there's 7, 8 of them in there, so and some of them are big
Mm-hmm.
guys, so
Yeah.
not a lot of room. But let's just transition into your team this year. Let's just talk about the overall roster. I know you have a lot of new coming people. I believe you have 4 returners, maybe 3, a couple red
Yeah.
shirts. Tell me a little bit about your freshman class and your sophomore class. Trayvon
Yeah.
Casey has been awesome.
Yeah, he's a stud, man. He's a stud. He came to us last year, mid-year, just looking for an opportunity to play and get back to things. And due to the injuries we had, I'm like, man, we need bodies for practice. Like, this is crazy. How do we play and practice if we don't have bodies? And so, he stayed persistent and continued to reach out, and I'm so glad that it worked out, because he's an awesome young man. He's got an edge to him that he plays with that is second to none, right? And sometimes we gotta temper that back, right? But I don't want to take that edge off, because it's what makes him good, right? Now we just find the balance of things. But he's been a stud for us, averaging 16 a game on like 50-40 shooting. He's like 50-40-75. We got to get him up to that 90 mark, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he's been a leader. Our team feeds off of his energy, right? And feeds off of his vibe, right? That's what the kids call it nowadays. What's the
Yeah.
vibe? They feed off of his vibe, and if he's vibing, like, our group is fun. It's a fun group. And so he's been awesome for us. I only have one kid that played for us last year that returned. The other 3 that are back all redshirted. Trayvon, Lincoln, and Koa all redshirted. Hopefully we get Koa back from injury here pretty soon in January, with his knee. And then Aiden Slater, who played a lot of games for us, played a lot of minutes for us last year, and had to wear a lot of hats being on the floor with the new coaches and new program and things like that. But he's back and he's playing good minutes for us off the bench right now, giving us about 16, 17 minutes a game, and it's been awesome to have because he understands it. Right, those four guys know what I wanted and how I wanted it and things, and so we brought in a ton of new guys and a ton of new faces, and they're all great kids. We don't have a bad apple in our program, and that is something that's super important to me in the recruiting process, is to make sure we've got kids that fit what we're trying to do, but kids that can be coached by me. I coach really hard, and I love really hard too, right? And so my guys understand that, but you got to want to get better, right? And you come here, you come to Treasure Valley to get better. You're here because you didn't get the offer, the situation that you wanted elsewhere. Well, why didn't you get it? Well, a coach didn't think you were good enough to offer it to you, right? That's the only thing. So how do you get better? What do you need to be better at? Right. And so sometimes I just tell my kids, like, we got to be better, right? We've got to be better. And they understand where I'm coming from in the coaching aspect of things. We've got to be crisper. We've got to be more disciplined. We've got to do things with a greater intensity, with a greater sense of urgency. And I think a lot of our kids that we have this year are understanding that sense of urgency. Even my freshmen that came in, we started school at the end of September, but came in, just there a couple weeks before. They learned really quickly, holy cow, coach has standards. Like, this program wasn't very good last year. They didn't have a great record. Why is he so strict about this or that? It doesn't make sense. And then as the season grows, things start to be put together, right? And so they've done a really good job adjusting to what our standard is and how we're going to operate. And they bought in. That's why we've had some of this early season success, is because they bought into what we're doing. I can have any philosophy in the world and I can coach whatever, but if you don't have kids that buy in and good players, none of it matters, right? None of it matters.
100%. Yeah. And you got a lot of young talent. Ashraf is awesome, and Prince.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we're running down on the time here, but just tell me a little bit about what you expect from the rest of the season, and what some expectations you guys might have.
Yeah. I'm excited. We've gotten the first part of the season, out of the way now. And my high school kids are, this is their entire high school season. What we just went through is their high school season. Their bodies think they're done. So I'm really curious to see how my young guys will handle the second part of the season. Right. And I think they're going to handle it well, because we prepared for that. But we all have some high expectations for ourselves and for our program and things like that. And we want to win games. But it's the little things that we have to do that make us successful. We don't win games just because the score at the end. We win games because the little small things that we do each and every game. And so we have to continue to do those little things that make a big difference when you add them up.
All right, a little bit of a mess up there, but we're back here, and just let you finish what you were saying, Coach. I think we're talking about, how you guys got to do the little things to win and to buy in, and the importance of that. I think we're just talking about like the outlook on the season and what you expect from your guys going forward.
Yeah, I think this past weekend was really good for us to go 2-1 at the crossover. We're sitting at 8-4. The guys feel good about how we left the first half of the year. So I know they're excited to get back and kind of see what the rest of the season holds. And now that they've gotten a chance to see what the rest of the NWAC is and how we compare to teams, and both losses, we lost on some on the last second kind of free throws to SWAC that first weekend, and then we just did not play well at all, against Skagit. So I know we wanted that one back, but the guys feel good about where we stack up in comparison to some of these other teams that we've seen, and so I know they're excited to get a chance to go take the floor and continue to compete for sure.
How do you think the East region will be this year? I know it's a lot of tough teams over there.
Yeah,
What's your
it's
outlook on
it's it,
when league play starts?
yeah. It's hard to tell, Walla Walla and CBC are always good. Yakima and Spokane as well have been good for some years. And then you've always got teams that can sneak up and get you if you're not ready and you're not prepared, to step out and perform each and every night. You get on the floor, right? And so I think it's going to be good. It's hard to know. I haven't seen in person any other East Region teams, and so come the turn of the calendar here, I will dive into some more film and try and get familiar as we can with those guys and what they do and how they do it, and more than anything, what we need to do, because that's at the end of the day what matters. It's what we need to do to have success, not necessarily what these other teams are doing, but what do we do when we play them to have success. And so, good teams, good coaches. They've been around for a while. I think I'm still the new guy in the East region, with the exception of Big Bend, that just got a new coach this year. But they as well have gotten better, right? They've gotten better since the beginning of the season. So I think it'll be a good region for sure.
How do you, get your guys to, I know we're kind of going back a little bit, I guess, but how do you get you guys to really buy in, and get ready for the East region and, and league play? Because it is a lot different than preseason in my eyes. I know you have set games on a set day, so I assume that your schedule gets a lot more set in stone.
Yeah, it gets a little bit more structured, which is nice for our guys, right? Because structure is good, in terms of you can plan and prepare and move forward. But I think it'll be. I think that structure will help quite a bit with our guys going into this second round of things, and just being able to get in the mode, right, of every Wednesday and every Saturday. Last year we kind of had a wonky deal because we had 9 teams in our region, as opposed to the standard 8 because of North Idaho being in there. Now that they're not, so we would have to play like these oddball days, right? And so that no other region got the fortunate experience of getting to have. But it'll be nice. It'll be nice for our guys to get that structure under them and really just step into things and settle in. They're familiar with school now. They understand what the expectations are for school and how we operate, and they know, it's not coming in September. So they get to kind of hit the ground running a little bit.
Definitely. What are some just going back to, I guess, your general team or at TVCC there, what are some guys that 4-year coaches and recruiters should keep their eye on? I know we talked a little bit about Trayvon earlier, but I know you have a lot of freshmen. So what are some other guys that they should be looking for?
Our first 5 is really good. I think where our team, I really love our team is our 6 through 8 or 6 through 9. I can sub those guys into the game, and with full confidence that they're going to do what we ask them to do, and we'll have some success with them. Even this past weekend, you look at one of our games, we got in foul trouble against Pierce, and I sub in Paul, who's a 6'7", 240 grown man, right? Like he's a big dude, and he goes in and in 12 minutes he grabs 8 rebounds. Like, he knows his role and he plays his role really well. And so for 4-year coaches, I'm really excited to see 4-year coaches. Everyone talks about it, but I'm curious to see how many will actually start to do it. You've got to recruit guys for a specific role, right? And just because they didn't do this or did do that, right? If you don't need a scorer, then don't recruit Trayvon Cason, right? But that's what Trayvon Cason is. He's a scorer, and you don't quite know how he scores, but he scores it at 56% and 46% from, or 40% from 3, and so he just scores. But if you need dudes to knock down shots, right, you're going to recruit that role, which is what Aiden Slater is, right? And we're not even talking about, we haven't been with our leading rebounder for the past 6 games in Koa Beard. So he's 6'4", 6'5", 11 and 8 for us. And he's a sophomore this year who's going to graduate, who's going to have, when he gets back and is able to show what he can do, he's definitely going to have some schools that can use his talents and services as well. And so those are kind of, in regards to the sophomores, some of those kids that that stand out. And then we've got a host of freshmen that, for me, as long as a kid finds a good spot, if they leave after 1 year, they leave after 1 year. Like our job as coaches at this level, especially, is find them a home that they want to be at and that's good for them. Right. And that's our job. And if that means 1 year, that means 1 year. And if it means 2 years with us, that means 2 years with us. But I know Ulrich, our point guard, will have some opportunities, as well as some of our other freshmen. So that's kind of the benefit and the pros and the cons, right? You get to see some kids have some success after 1 year and move on. But then you also get to see some kids that get to come back and they really take a leap, right? They really take that growth and that step that some of our guys, some of our guys have Division I aspirations. And so they're taking care of stuff in the classroom right now that they need to take care of. But Yale Dang is all of 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan that can shoot the three at a good clip in the high 30s and finish around the rim and shoot it well from the free throw line. And so he's a tough matchup, right? Because he can handle the ball a little bit. And so, we'll try and find good spots for these guys. But I don't know if there's a kid 1 through 9 on our roster right now that doesn't belong on a really good team, because they know how to play their role. And I will say this, and I was talking to another coach about it. Like, if a kid plays for me and they're moving on, I have full faith that they're going to be able to step into a program if they're recruited for the right role and be really good in that role. I have no doubt about it, because they're coachable. They're a good teammate, right? You don't get to be on our program without being at least, a decent teammate, right? If you're a bad one, it stands out like a sore thumb. And so they're coachable. They're a good teammate. They're going to work their tail off, right? And they're going to be about the right things. And so that I think is what coaches ultimately want. But if it's not flashy and has a good highlight reel, sometimes they steer away from it. And so, but I think we have the combination of, we have that, but then we also have some kids make some really good plays every single game, that coaches will get excited about and so forth. And so, I'm excited about our group, really from top to bottom.
Yeah, I think you guys have a really solid squad. And I think I do want to emphasize the role, and recruiting for a role, and knowing your role, because a lot of guys, I don't know, a lot of high school guys specifically coming right out, they don't know that that is the best way to go. Because sometimes they think that I'm the best. I want to do this. I want to score the ball all the time. I want the ball in my hands. I want, etc.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get those players or recruits that you're talking to understand that to be successful beyond, you have to know your role?
Well, I think you've got to be honest with them in the recruiting process. And this is where a lot of coaches aren't, right? This is just the truth of the matter. A lot of coaches aren't, because they're worried about losing the kid. And for me, and my approach with it is, like, if you're going to recruit the kid, recruit him and be brutally honest up front, be as open and transparent as you can up front. And then when they get there, it's exactly what you said it was going to be, right? That's the biggest thing I can get behind and be excited about, is my guys, they know what they're getting when they get here, right? And I've lost some kids in my first 2 years. I've lost some kids who, decided to go a different direction and so forth. And that's totally okay. But each year I've gotten a call from them the next year. We have a kid coming at break that went to a Division I this past year. And I knew it wasn't going to be what the coaches were making it out to be. And I knew it wasn't going to be what he thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. But you've got to let kids find that. And you just treat them right in the process. You're honest with them. You're truthful with them, right? I know those are the same words, but you're open and transparent with them. And then when they get wronged in their next situation, just like a month ago, I get a call like, "Coach, this is not working out. Can I come?" And I tell them yes or no, depending upon our situation. And so, at the end of the day, as long as even with kids that don't come, as long as they're like, "Man, I appreciated how he handled the recruiting process." And it was even this year. I mean, we played a team that I recruited, a kid or two off the teams that we played, and their parents, came up to me, "Man, how are things going? You look like you're having a great year. Really appreciate you." And their kid didn't even come to my school, and then that's okay. Like, not every kid is going to come to you. That's not how it works. But as long as you can be respected afterwards, right? Because of how you handled yourself and how your program handles yourself and things like that. Like that's what I want. And so, kids, right now are so eager to just find a spot, find a spot, find a spot, find a spot. And then it's like, man, this spot isn't really great. Right. And so you got to ask yourself as a kid, well, is it not great, or was it not the right situation to begin with? You just tried to make it work, right? Because you wanted to be somewhere. Um, so that I think is a big piece to it, and it's getting harder and harder to find good situations, right? And programs that do it the right way and teach you not just basketball and things like that, but teach you life, right?
Yeah, and I think that the sort of that kind of goes along with like the longevity of being a coach as well, and having to be truthful and transparent all the time, or else, those connections aren't going to be as strong like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on, Coach. Thank you for coming
Yeah,
in and talking to me. I'm really excited for you guys the rest of your season. I've watched a couple of your games on live stream, and you guys really solid squad. I think that you guys are going to
thank you.
do a lot of damage in the East region, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch because you guys have a couple solid teams like we just talked about as well, and it's going to be a race, and it's going to be an intense one, and whoever's whatever players are ready to get through the grind and put the work in and stay committed and stay ready, those are the guys who's going to come up on top. And you seem like a great
For
leader
sure.
for those guys. And I
For sure.
think that you're ready to you know take that next step. And
Appreciate it.
yeah, of course, thank
Thank
you,
you. Well,
Coach.
thank
And
you for having me on.
course, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. I'd love to talk again, maybe after the season. We can recap the season, recap the players you guys have, and then everything like that.
For sure. Sounds good. We'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach.
All right. Talk soon.